Hi, this is Ali with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today I want to talk to you about how to deal with resentment. Okay, so resentment is a really awful feeling, and most people, especially if you're kind of more of a spiritual person or a sensitive person or someone who's kind of like on a self growth journey, most of us feel really guilty and really bad about feeling resentment towards someone. Like people are just very uncomfortable identifying with the fact that they feel resentment, and most people really want to just get rid of it or get away from it, or don't even want to acknowledge that they feel it. And so the first thing that I want to say about resentment and about getting over resentment, quote unquote, is that before you even listen to anything else I have to say here today, is just to give yourself a little bit of permission as to feeling your emotions. That whatever you feel is okay. And you are a human, and you're here having a human experience, and just to know that it is okay to start telling yourself that it's okay to feel whatever you feel, and that you're not a bad person or a not spiritual person, or you're not less evolved than you think that you are if you feel resentment towards someone. Okay, so just kind of taking the weight off that you're not a terrible person to admit that you feel resentment, and you're not spiritual to admit that you feel resentment. That is just a part of human experience. We feel things, we have emotions, we have responses to the things that happen to us in our lives, and that's okay. Okay? So that's how I want to start this. Now, in actually dealing with resentment and in actually moving forward with resentment, the first thing that I want to say is that resentment usually comes from a situation where we felt victimized or like we were helpless in a certain circumstance. So either someone did something to us that we feel that they shouldn't have done, or someone didn't do something to or for us that we feel that they should have done, and it left us feeling powerless, or like we had less power, or that we were a victim. And of course there's a huge sliding scale for how extreme that could have been. So there are definitely lesser moments of feeling victimized by someone, like if they just yell at you or aren't respectful towards you, all the way to things like sexual abuse and things where we really genuinely are being victimized by somebody. And like I say, generally resentment is born out of these situations, and I will tell you why, and there's a very good reason why. Okay, so in the book Power versus Force, you will find in there an emotional scale. Okay, and I think that this emotional scale is genius because it really helps us to feel less bad about our emotions and to understand why our emotions are there and what purpose that they serve. Because like I always say in all of my videos, your emotions are there for you. They're not there to mess you up. They're a good thing. And the more you learn how to be okay with your emotions, how to work with your emotions, the smoother your life will be. So on this emotional scale, you will find that feeling victimized and feeling powerless and feeling less power is below anger. Okay? So this scale is basically showing us that like coming all the way down, like basically guilt, shame, powerlessness are basically the lowest places you can be on the vibrational scale. And this vibrational scale goes all the way up through, love and joy being kind of the peak emotional state that we can feel. And so if you understand that what everyone wants to feel, what we all want to feel are these peak emotions. We all want to feel joy. We want to feel happiness. We all want to feel gratitude. We all want to feel love. And this is kind of where we want to be on the emotional scale. This is where we all feel good when we're up here, right? So when we're not there, when we're down here on the bottom half of the emotional scale, we don't feel good. And what you need to understand is that each subsequent emotion, like that goes all the way down from guilt being kind of like the bottom to joy being at the top, each subsequent emotion is like a step on the emotional scale that helps us climb towards joy. So if you understand that anger and resentment is a step above guilt and shame and powerlessness, you can then understand that to feel your anger and to feel your resentment is actually your emotional guidance system trying to get you up out of shame and up out of victimhood and up out of powerlessness. So most people are afraid that when they get to this place of resentment or anger, they're afraid to feel that stuff because they really identify that as being a negative thing and not a spiritual thing and not something that, wise, spiritual, or forward-thinking people do. But you need to understand that going from shame to forgiveness and happiness and joy without going through anger and without going through pessimism and without going through even blame is like trying to get from the bottom of the staircase to the top of the staircase without using the stairs, right? So this is what I want you to understand, is that your resentment towards whoever it was that made you feel victimized is actually a step up on the vibrational emotional scale. So first thing is to understand that your anger and your resentment is a good thing. It's moving you up towards where you want to go. It's moving you towards forgiveness. It's moving you towards happiness. It's moving you towards joy. It's a step on the scale. And then the second thing you need to understand is the only way that you're going to get stuck in resentment and get stuck in anger is if you don't allow yourself to feel it. So if you're one of these people that feels resentment towards someone and you try and shut that off every time you feel it, or you feel guilty every time you feel it, or you think you shouldn't be feeling that, or you want to distract yourself, or you want to whatever, you keep yourself stuck in victimhood, right? And then you just keep hopping towards feeling like a victim to feeling resentment, feeling like a victim to feeling resentment, feeling like a victim to feeling resentment, and you never actually are able to move up. Okay, so the second thing you need to do is allow yourself to feel your anger. And I actually got asked this question on Instagram the other day, is how do I healthfully express or feel my anger and process it? And to that I would say I've developed a few techniques, so like journaling, allowing myself to sit in my journal and just write out all the nasty, terrible, angry things that I have to say about this person or this situation, and just allow myself to feel and think what I'm feeling. Talking to a counselor, like a compassionate witness, someone who's not involved in the situation that you can just kind of word vomit onto and just allow yourself to express and to feel what you're feeling. Even if you need to go for like a walk and just like fume in your head and a lot of the times too, physical activity can be a really great way to kind of move that anger. If you can go to like a kickboxing class or punch a pillow or something, like sometimes you just need to express it. And this is the thing, is that keeping it all trapped inside and pretending like you're not feeling it or feeling it and not expressing it in any way isn't healthy. But of course, expressing it onto someone or onto something is also not healthy. You don't want to like go to your spouse and start yelling at them, right? You don't want to go yell at your kids. You don't want to go express your anger onto the people like in road rage. And so this is why I'm saying like getting it out in a safe environment is important and you have to do it, okay? So allowing yourself to express your anger in these safe places. And then from there, you'll get to a place where feeling angry stops feeling good, right? It stops feeling rewarding, it stops feeling powerful, and it starts feeling heavy again. That's when you know you're ready to move on, okay? And then and only then do you need to start expecting yourself to start moving on from resentment and moving towards forgiveness. And so when you get to that place where anger stops feeling good and it stops feeling progressive and it stops feeling like it's serving its purpose, that's when you start to empower yourself again. Okay, so that's when you start to take your power back and you look at the situation and so when I say taking your power back, I also mean kind of like taking responsibility. So by that, I do not mean you sit there and you say, it was my fault that this person victimized me. I do not mean that you sit there and say, if you were a victim of sexual abuse, like I asked for it or something like that. That is not what I mean by taking responsibility. What I mean by taking responsibility is You now get to decide how that situation is going to affect you now and in the future. Okay, so what happened, happened. And what you felt about it, you felt about it. And what that person did to you happened. And you've acknowledged it now, right? You've acknowledged your feelings of anger about it. You've acknowledged your feelings of sadness. You've acknowledged your feelings of resentment and wishing it hadn't happened and all of these things. And now from here, from this new place where you have processed those emotions, who do you want to be? How do you want to move forward? How do you want to allow this to affect you? How can you take your power back and say, okay, this terrible thing happened to me, this person did this terrible thing to me, but now I'm going to take my power back and I'm going to say, I'm going to turn this into something positive. I'm going to turn this into something that helps me learn and grow. I'm going to turn this into something that makes me feel stronger and better and more capable, rather than allowing it to be something that makes me feel scared and helpless and hopeless, right? So like just a quick example where like I was picked on in school and I was not treated well. And so a part of my processing, and I developed a lot of really negative, self-destructive habits out of that stuff, right? And for a long time it was like I was blaming my past, right? And the people that treated me poorly for why I treated myself so poorly and why I treated myself so badly. And after I got through the resentment and after I got through the anger and after I got to that place where anger and talking about it and rehashing it or whatever didn't feel good anymore, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? And what I started to do was like I started to empower myself. I started to say, okay, these people didn't treat me well, so how is my treating myself equally unwell serving me or making this situation any better? It's not. So that's when I started to say, okay, I'm going to start to take responsibility to treat myself the way I wish they had treated me. I'm going to start taking responsibility to stand up for myself the way that I never did before. I'm going to start taking responsibility to say, you know, that happened to me, but I'm not going to allow it to make me a negative, angry, resentful person for the rest of my life. I'm going to say, that stuff happened, and now I take my power back to not put myself in situations like that anymore, and to stand up for myself, like I say, in social situations, and to take care of myself and nurture myself the way that they didn't. And that is what I mean by taking responsibility and choosing how you're going to allow it to affect you. So that is my explanation on resentment. So first things first, understanding that you were in a situation where you felt victimized, and resentment and anger is a step up out of that. That's your emotions trying to lead you up towards joy, which is where you want to be. So understanding that resentment does not make you less spiritual, it makes you a human being who has to take the steps, right? That you have to take the steps on the staircase. You can't go from the bottom to the top without going on the steps. Second thing, to allow yourself to process and feel that stuff. So journal, get a coach, do something physical, talk it out. Whatever you need to do to express that anger in a safe place where you're not projecting it onto someone, doing that. And then when that stops feeling good and that stops feeling productive, and for some people it's going to take a while. Sometimes you have to stay in it for a while, and that is okay. Giving yourself permission to stay where you are and giving yourself props every single time you feel your anger, every single time you express your anger, even if it feels like the same thing over and over again, know that every single time you do it, you're moving forward, even if it doesn't feel like that. Giving yourself credit that you're processing it, and it takes as long as it takes to process it. And then from there, take your responsibility back, take your power back. How are you going to move forward? How are you going to be different? How are you going to allow this to be a positive thing in your life? Because you get to decide that. And then that's how you deal with resentment. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I always love hearing from you. Find me on Facebook. We're Perception Trainers. Find us on Instagram. I'm Urban Fruit Bat. And again, if you have any video requests, comments, I love all that stuff. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.